Hello everybody and welcome to this, my early preview of Europa Universalis 5. In this video I'd like to provide you with an early preview, of course, a first look at this game, as well as hopefully some tips and tricks along the way to build a mighty foundation of a mighty civilization. I'm certainly not an expert here in this world. The year is 1337. There's much still to be explored, and as you can see, a myriad of different nations we can play as. Before we jump into any one of these individual little places, I have to give my thanks to Paradox for giving me early access to EU5 to provide this preview video to you, and for sponsoring this video. I'll be sure to chuck a link down in the description if you'd like to find out more about the game. For now though, let's crack straight into this. Let's get started. As I said, I want to try and show you a little bit about how EU5 works, the core mechanics that are driving these big and very, very small little nations, as well as actually play a bit, right? Let's do it. I say play a bit because it would be fair to say that this game is expansive like there's no tomorrow. For context, I've played quite a lot of grand strategy like Victoria 3, and I certainly feel at home with that background, though my Europa Universalis experience is very limited, so maybe a lot of you are in the same boat, or at least a broadly similar one. As you would expect, down the bottom here, even right before we select a country, though these will come in handy later on, we have a whole load of different overlays, so we can get a feel for where the population centers are, the different cultures or religions, as they vary by location. Stepping a little bit back just to the menu for a second, by the way, just in case you're curious, there are also this selection of countries that we can play as. This will also enable the tutorial as we go. It's a pretty good one, but I'm not going to play as one of these, but I'll try and show you the sort of hints and tutorial kind of things as we go through. Back to selecting a country to play as, it's always a tricky decision for me. I don't know about you. On the one hand, we can play as the tutorial ones, or a great nation of many people and huge power. Here we might start with vassals, or maybe we'll start at war, like the Grand Duchy of Lithuania and the Teutonic Order do. Alternatively, we can dive right down into the tiniest of levels. Start somewhere with almost no people, no population, no development. Man, the options really do feel endless here. There are obviously so many countries I haven't played as yet, but one of them happens to be the country of Provence, so why don't we select this little province down here? We have King Robert, 61 years old, reasonably capable at many things, mostly diplomacy. He's a fair administrator too. And obviously you can see the other metrics here as well. I'm looking at the standing army size. The budget here looks to be relatively well balanced, tax base, reasonable population. Not a massive player, but also not tiny. So let's give it a whirl. And so jumping in, we get a sort of agenda, a situation report. Ours obviously focuses fairly heavily here around France. The French crown has struggled to consolidate power. There's the English across the channel. Things here are a little difficult. More specifically on the country of Provence, we see kind of a heads-up view of things we might need to worry about. I note that my balance here is in fact negative. And you can also see EU5's hint system at play here too. In my experience with it, it's incredibly detailed. Obviously it's text-based, so you're going to be doing quite a bit of reading, but it's also extraordinarily helpful with like little color coding and little symbols here. Obviously there are nested tooltips within nested tooltips if you need them. Generally pretty good at displaying what is, no doubt, a whole massive raft of information. Alright then, now let's delve in a little bit into what makes everything here tick. Here we have our capital, the city of Marseille. You can see we have a few others, and our broader territory. Obviously much of the game here at the start will be played on pause. Down the bottom here, I see we have an international organization. It's none other than the Holy Roman Empire. Who would have thought? Inside of here, there is a lot of depth too. Imperial laws, members, a whole load of members. We also have the Catholic Church, payee the Papal States, payment of 73, not too bad. We're going to need to balance our books shortly. And finally, we have this wonderful little union. Goodness gracious. We start in a busy place. The sheer scale of things going on here is, in my view, obviously far too much for one video, which is why I'm going to try and focus on the core mechanics and kind of the laying the foundations of an empire stuff. I think the best way to show it is maybe to click up here. You'll notice it's age 1, the age of traditions. And this panel has opened up, and you can see it goes right the way through to the Age of Revolutions, which ends on December 1836. If we go to advances, this is kind of the technology, the tech tree, organized religion, sure, let's add it to the queue. A few more things now become available, adding their own little boosters to different yields. Obviously, this is how we would shape the future of our nation and its population. Advancing into the technology tree here a little bit further, just because you might be as curious as I was, it was one of the first things I did when I loaded up EU5 was, how far does this game go? What does this actually look like in the later game? How can I progress? Turns out a whole load of different ways that, spoiler alert, may fall outside of the scope of this video. Gun factories, perhaps not quite today. Up in the top left here, we have a lot of our key panels, and this includes a very grand strategy, Crusader Kings-esque profile of our, again, currently slightly aged King Robert, the government panel. Obviously, the economy panel is going to be very important too. As I immediately look to the taxes over the left-hand side here, I see that I can get away with minting a little bit more without increasing inflation. This is the metric that I'm looking at in particular. Look, if I fang this up, we're going to do bad things. We're going to inflate the economy and therefore reduce the value of our money. So I'll try and keep it just slightly in the green at literally 0, or as close to 0 as possible. I could also look to up taxes a little bit, but you'll notice it's going to hurt approval. In essence, keeping this above 50% is kind of a good thing. Their approval, their satisfaction. At the moment, it looks like the game has basically got it at 50%. Sometimes, a little bit of extra wiggle room. Right? The commoner's tax, for example. Nope, it's maxed. Okay. One other super important thing here are these little cogs. These will be your lifeblood. If, like me, maybe you haven't played a lot of Europa Universalis before. If you haven't played any grand strategy before, these will be absolute training wheels and crutches. They won't allow you necessarily to send your empire in the exact direction you want it to go, but the game will automatically manage most of the different aspects if I want to. So here now I've just selected it to automatically manage the taxes. Done. Make me money and keep them reasonably satisfied. On the right hand side, actually, underneath the Age of Traditions here, the sort of the research, the current period, there's this automation tab. If you play the tutorial, it'll walk you through this, and I don't want to bore you. That being said, this is an early preview, so just in case you haven't seen it before, as I was mentioning, basically every aspect of the game can be, should you choose to allow it to be, automated. Research is actually quite a good one. If you don't know the specific advances, the specific unlocks you want to work towards to build your new kingdom or your peasant republic or your religious autocracy, whatever it may be, you can just kind of automate the research. Same goes if laws or cabinet picks, your parliament, the estates, the kind of different groups, interest groups within your nation, you can kind of auto-manage all of that if it's either a little bit too complicated or just not your current focus. Obviously, you can turn it off and on. The military ones down here, right? Construct an army, sure. Game, go ahead. Do that for me early on, while I focus on managing these pressing issues up the top here. So let's start with that. These are obviously a good place to start. We have a member leaving the Union. What is this all about? Naples is leaving the Union due to their succession law, Salic law. That's fine. Okay, who's next? Pops with needs. This one, a little more pressing. Barcelona market, fruit, livestock, sturdy grains. And then in the Genova market, also fruit, sturdy grains. Okay, so these are the kind of goods that I might want to focus on either training or building early on. Here we have the RGO builder, resource gathering operations builder, and the game shows me really nicely the kinds of resources that I can gather. Each location essentially has a primary resource, and these little icons are showing me that this location here is fruit. I know that I need fruit. So I might start by expanding this, and as you can see on the right, getting some fruit down. Having a look at fruit in particular, I can see that all of the different population types want fruit. There's real demand for fruit here, even right up to the nobles. Looks like there is another territory, and this one's actually closer to the capital, so we may have better control, connection, tax revenue, etc. with this one, potentially. Population-wise, obviously there's a concentration through the center here. Not so much in our fruitful territories, but they're probably close enough. If I dismiss this for a little bit, let's go back to this view. So here's the capital. The connection that I'm talking about is, as you might expect, actually not just dual-faceted, but there are so many different layers to it. One of the most obvious ones are roads. Here's the road builder. Where do we have roads at the moment? Looks like we're not building any. Roads will allow a greater connection, and this connection will allow us better control. Let's see. Here's a tooltip right here so you can read along with it. The control of the location will determine our tax base, army levies, naval, should they be appropriate. In essence, it's a great idea to have a lot of control. Obviously, any good ruler does. Oh, and I notice up the top here, gravel road will have the following effects: capital distance cost, 20 instead of 40, as well as a reduction to movement cost, market access, and proximity, right? This is all good stuff. We could build a road out to the fruitful territories, or even further still, get this place properly connected. Unfortunately, at the moment, I can't afford it, so we'll come back to this. With some farms in Marseille here also expanding, let me focus slightly on the government now. This is another big panel over here that needs some attention before I even unpause the game. Again, so much of the early game is played here. Alright, so here we can assign characters to be cabinet ministers, and then assign them to the various actions that we might need to control the population, the growth, the legitimacy, investment, all sorts of different actions on our population and on our country. Actually, speaking of country, something else fun to check early on: form a new country. We could form a republic, okay, theocracy, okay, always good to have goals, right? Or Duchy Kingdom Empire. Again, maybe slightly out of reach just for today. Oh, so let's jump back to the cabinet. Here they are, here they non-existent are, within the government panel. Let's chuck in a minister. We have a surprisingly small selection of options here. Key traits, age, and also allegiance, right? All pretty important here. Mouse over it to get a feel for which dynasties they belong to. Obviously, early on, it can be hard to judge exactly who you should be aligning with, and I prefer to just choose someone young with good stats who looks to be relatively closely aligned to me. This 25-year-old has an excellent administrative ability. Look at you, administrative king. Sure, let's make you a minister. But hold the phone. I need more money, which probably means I need to unpause with the books balanced. Let's take a look. Costs of the court. Currently earning me a nice little bit of change here, but costing me a little bit much, right? Let's shrink this down. Well down for now. I'd note that I am still very much in the positive legitimacy category, so that's probably fine. As I balance the books here, I notice we also have quite a few unprofitable buildings, which is a little bit of an unfortunate start, but not the end of the world. We have an underage heir, a mere 9-year-old child who will need some sort of balanced education and royal marriage, no doubt. And the rest of these look to be fairly low priorities, right? Possible government reforms. Okay, handy. We could use really anything that will give us a little bit of extra money, extra goods, or that I could supplement in exchange for money. So increase government power here and take away spending elsewhere, for example. Let's start with a nice, simple agricultural cultivation. Food production, 20%, monthly progress to serfdom as well. Sure. Very good. Chancellor reports, reform it shall be. Still another empty slot here and not a lot of priorities. Obviously, things like developing a province is okay to just sort of pass the time. I could increase population in a certain area, like a fruit-producing area. Maybe, actually. Sure, let's do it. We also have our laws tab here. Some religious, military levies. Okay. A lot of stuff we could finesse in the detail there. Most of it, obviously, is going to be outside of my reach early on. There is also a really nice values tab here where we can get kind of a broader look at obviously, the overall values, the overall political aspirations, goals, and therefore metrics of our society. Centralized versus decentralized, and how far we sway that way and the kind of impact that will have. And if I had a specific early goal early on, this could be a good way actually to use my cabinet actions to steer toward that. A lot of the suggestions do tend to be quite similar early on, but nonetheless, I think that this gives you a really good kind of broad look at big levers you can pull if you have a specific goal in mind. I'm gonna hit the unpause button and allow things to start rolling through. I do need to focus this in on this just a little bit before I maybe speed it up too much though, otherwise I'm gonna run into a whole load of events. I'm hoping that my early actions will stabilize the budget. Looks like they have done. Okay, very good. Alright, turn down the speed. We're off to a great start, with some interesting times ahead of us. It's possible to align with the Papal States or the leader of the Holy Roman Empire in their struggle for dominance over Italy. Interesting. And the vile kingdom of Majorca has declared us their rival. Okay, we are stronger than them. They are a vassal of the Crown of Aragon though, so maybe we want to pick and choose our fights here a little bit more. What kind of actions can I take? We could send them an insult just to let them know how we really feel about them. Maybe not. Economically, offer them some gold, embargo them. Perhaps for now, I won't delve too deeply into these. In fact, actually, you know what? We could go in the total opposite direction. Aragon have offered us an alliance. Alright, it's a deal. Just to throw the cat amongst the pigeons early on, let's do this. Absolutely. Got a little bit of cash in the bank now, so roads will start to become available from earlier. Let's see if I can tackle a few other situations. Following cabinet actions, like a character to lead them. Good point. Let's get the administrator in on that role. And there's an outbreak of smallpox. This is indeed not good. Okay. Anyway, as I was saying, we have characters to assign. And with that, the cabinet has been expanded. Very good. Let's check the other slot here too. What are we trying to do? Okay, so we're looking for an administrator if we can. Don't have a lot of great ones. This guy's trait is a ship capture chance. Probably not going to need that. You know what? You're in. You're hired. You're not. But you will be in a couple of months. Let's carry on. We'll come back to him. The rat outbreak. Should we build some disease resistance buildings? You know what? I might come back to that too. Another one of my pressing actions up here, granted a green one, right, so it doesn't really matter so much, but I can choose a rival. The game does a great job at telling me, firstly, what they will do, right, hurt the counter-espionage, but also I love this. Papal States, we are perfectly balanced. How good. Kingdom of France, we're no match for them whatsoever, so maybe we pick a rival who's way smaller than us, Alba. It's you. It was always you, Alba. And if you zoom in with your microscope down here, you'll see Alba. They are insignificant compared to us. Look, here they are. Let's send them an insult. No, let's create a reason for, no, it's a little bit too much. We'll just send an insult. It's fine. Take that, Alba. All right, a little bit of time has passed. My fruit has been built. Let's appoint that second cabinet minister, as I was trying to do earlier on. I'm now going to actually get them to assert some extra control over some fruit producing or otherwise disconnected regions. And then I need to get a bit of money so that we can start building some roads and get these places better connected too. And as I was finessing a little bit of the government stuff there, I think I should focus maybe slightly more on my core territories just to begin with. I noticed that a minister has gained power. It seems that a member of our cabinet will stop at nothing to elevate his position using more or less questionable methods. He has come to command the undivided attention of the king. Fire him. Immediately remove him from cabinet. All of the hard work that I've done so far. Or say, yeah, you're doing a great job. And hit the legitimacy tank a little bit. Let's sack him. He's gone. Sorry, everybody. All that work literally for nothing. I can't have challenges to my power so early on. Goodness. Chuck someone else in there instead. And Happy New Year! It's officially 1338, which means that I should check in with you and we should have a look at these pressing situations up the top here. Basically, we get to choose a side or stay neutral. Here's the 100 Years' War. Very cool. England versus France. I feel in terms of prosperity, it might be a better idea to align with France, or just stay neutral for now. For my very early focus here, and considering he's our king, I think it's probably a good idea for me to steer clear. My allies are also steering clear, so for now, I think I'll dodge that situation, and maybe actually change pace a little bit here. We've covered off, obviously not all of the basics, but quite a lot of the basic understanding of how EU5 works. population mechanics, road building, trade, goods, primary construction, etc. You get the idea. So what I'm going to do is play through and maybe interrupt this playthrough a little less often. Let's skip ahead and try and get some advancements going. There are a few things I want to be careful of here, though. I note that as I'm building these fruit gathering operations, I don't necessarily have enough people to build them. So I need to take care of that. Again, just to go back to the game hints, they do a really good job, right? So here it's telling me, maybe don't build any more fruit there because you don't have the employees. Maybe increase important sources of promotion speed if you need different types. Speaking of different types, actually, as the Holy Roman Emperor's reign grows, we should just quickly pay attention up the top here. Here you can see broadly the different population types. Nobles, down to clergy, right the way through to our commoners. And I can take overarching actions to grant them privileges at the cost of my own control and power to quickly win them over. Or I could go back to the tax screen and try and reduce the burden on them there, provide their goods. You get the idea. We want to try and keep them as happy as possible, and if possible, not give them any extra power. Let's jump back to that glorious road building for a moment and just reassess the cost. So there are a couple of... Oh, hello. Neutrality has indeed served us well. There are a couple of different options. As you can see, they're fairly expensive. I'm making money now at about 10, but we're going to need a lot more ducats if we want to actually be able to connect these territories. Tyrannical nobility... Let's turn a blind eye to these abuses. Sorry, commoners. It's not going to be great for you, but that'll do. This has naturally aggravated the commoners a little bit. You can see there's a slight insurgency happening. Ultimately, it's not the end of the world. It's fairly small. We should keep an eye on it, for of course we want to avoid it, but it's just the commoners, it's fine. If you're looking to steer your empire in a certain way, obviously this production menu here is going to be your best friend. All of the metrics you might expect, and a few you probably didn't, will be here. Fundamentally, the color coding will be very useful though, right? If I want to build a military, I'm going to need sergeantries or castles or red buildings. I'm also going to use some of my seemingly infinite diplomacy to try and improve the kind of overall situation with my neighbors. Obviously, we get along fairly well with the French, but we'd like to be their bestest friends so that maybe in future I could fight a little somebody somewhere. But first, it is with sad news, yeah, breaking news, that I report the death of King Robert the Wise. Yike. Gone but not forgotten. King of Naples until the 2nd of February. 1339. Well, nothing like a little power vacuum. Where does the vacuum go, actually? King Robert, child, died 10 years ago, age 30, died 29, age 9. Consort Elena and heir Carolus. Goodness me, you're an interesting character. We should be married! Maybe one day. Future ambitions, potentially here, in a very Crusader Kings-esque style of diplomacy. So, Argentina, whose portrait is now up the top here, what's your deal? Catholic, fairly good administrator, 2 children and a spouse already. Unfortunate, but, beggars can't be Hello, Antonio, our courtier. Alright, good. Although actually, while we're here and thinking about diplomacy, if you're curious on the diplomatic screen, here's a quick look. There are a whole load of actions that I could choose to take. Right now, I probably don't need many of them, though. And while we're here, actually, let's take a government action. Let's move towards autocracy, because, I don't know, more crown power must be a good thing. As we advance a little further, the passing of a policy here has improved my relationship with the nobles. Currently, even though I'm losing a little bit with the clergy, they do tend to like me, 65%, whereas the nobles are actually slightly low at 49%, so this should hopefully help them. I also feel I should at least spend some of my diplomacy, because I have so much of it to spend. Maybe here on the French, right? I mean, kind of overlords, big major power right next to me. Let's curry a few favors with the French. Yes, an embassy. Why not? Maybe I should also come over here to the Papal States, look to do a deal with them or the Brits, or even actually Aragon, right? My ally. Maybe we should buddy up with these guys a little more. The options here are actually surprisingly wide-reaching. So I could, again, curry favor, right? Or we could go for the base improve opinion, though we already absolutely love each other. I mean, look at this. Some other, perhaps more interesting things are buried down the bottom here. One that may not always be wise, but I particularly like, is buy location, sell a location to Aragon. Or sell location. As you can imagine, the likelihood of buying a location, even for a hefty price of 100, it's probably not quite going to be possible, but I love that it's here, and with a little bit of finessing and much more time passed, it's an option. For now, let's focus on moving closer together. Maybe a improved relationship might be a good place to start. And wham bam, thank you ma'am, just to go back to where we were before, here's a new road coming online, therefore increasing our overall control over these provinces. Control, by the way, and the kinds of effects that it has can be seen here. The effective control over your capital, I think, is always 100%. I mean, I'm sure there are situations where that might change, but pretty sure you start off with peak control in the center, and then if we focus out a little bit more, like let's go up to maybe somewhere near where our fruit is being done, you'll notice the control is far worse. By building roads, better connecting territories, we'll be able to increase this, and therefore increase the tax base. This territory, as you can see, just below the key, up the top left there, potential tax base 3.2, but we're only getting a little over half right now. We've got to improve on all of those negative multipliers. And with 2 diplomats up here, 2 diplomat points still to spend, another event has come up. The events in this game are pretty big. There must be thousands and thousands. I think I read in a patch note somewhere that there's about 5 or 7,000 of them. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's true. The effects here. What do we want to do with the Philosopher's Stone? You're a wizard, Argentina! The question being, do I want to fund the alchemists? Turn their lead into gold. Research for 6 months, lose 91. Cure any disease for 72. Search high and low for the stone, 400. Definitely can't afford that. I'm going to be bankrupt for the rest of this video if I try and do that. Or lose a little bit of prestige, but societal values will move towards traditionalism. I reckon we try and turn it into gold. Let's pay a whopping 91, surging us a little bit into the red, but that's okay. We'll make up for it, right? We're still making $10 a month. A little bit of a loan, of course, can always fix this up. Obviously, it will hurt me. There's really no point in having these automated, by the way, because there is no army to maintain. But it'll hurt me a little bit, paying 1.2 interest. But it'll keep us in the green for now, so that's okay. As saints literally perform miracles, we have truly been blessed. And through the magic of television, here we are a little bit later, the 4th of January. How do we do? Alchemists have come back empty-handed, wasting an incredible amount of state funds in search of delusion. Okay. This was not entirely fruitless. Their workshop is littered with unrelated but otherwise useful research and a large amount of raw goods. What did we actually get? Lead, iron, silver, and gold. Okay, well, I mean, the market profits a little bit from that at least, I suppose. As our gravel road is built, good stuff. While we're looking at events, here's a fun one. Corruption among the clergy. The clergy are meant to be uncorruptible. We could cleanse the temple, losing a lot of satisfaction from them, but gaining some stability. Much needed. Or take a little bit of a bribe, increase their satisfaction. I think we can probably turn a blind eye to that. Events to one side, the year is now 1342, and I'm really glad that I get to show you this part. So, a new age has dawned, the age of Renaissance, as you can see up here, age 2. Here we get to choose a focus, and the focus has a focus tree of sorts, and we can work our way through it to get a whole lot of unique benefits, as you can see here, split between administration, diplomacy, or militarism. And it works its way down to a whole load of specialized abilities, generally benefits or positive changes to the kind of things that should be there. So diplomatic focus is obviously going to boost our reputation, our finances, our trade, etc. Or I could go full on militarism and work my way down this tree. Diplomacy and administration are probably my strengths here. This isn't really going to be a militarist game, and I'm not really going to have a military focus. So I think I'll go diplomatic for now. For always. As I move through here, our organization, our international organization, indeed, the Holy Roman Empire, continues to gain power. Constant notifications that more and more people are being brought into the fold. And it makes me think, if I want to have a bit more power here, I should probably be influencing the people who I need sway over, right? We should be building closer relationships with key powers or potential allies here. So I'm going to try and improve the relationship with some people a little bit closer to the action. Before I end this rather lengthy preview look at sort of the foundational elements here in EU5, we should probably quickly look at military, right? There are a few different things. I've talked already about the military buildings. Of course, we have navies to patrol the sea and keep our control, as well as land-based armies tied to buildings, population, and manpower, all of which I don't have an awful lot of here at the start. Obviously, we do have a few other options here. We have the generic levies. This will hurt. If you've played a grand strategy game before, you'll know it will hurt to use your population to fight your fights, but the option is there. We have the ability to recruit regulars should we have the right buildings and infrastructures, and then finally we have this mercenary tabs here, where we could look to spend a little bit of money to hire some mercenaries to help us in the fight. 121 bucks. They're not cheap, and the contract may not last all that long, but it's certainly an option. Proper war declarations are really best built up using diplomacy, using a casus belli, right? You want to kind of justify it rather than just throw yourself into a fight with one of these little neighbors. We can right-click on them to get access to these options straight away, right? So here you can see create casus belli. I'm going to need a diplomat, excommunicate a ruler, humiliate the rival. Different options potentially available, though to me, I have none. So I would instead need to declare more of an abrupt war and have a diplomat available. Through the magic of time and television, I now have a diplomat available, and a decision to make around legitimacy or prestige. See, legitimacy. Okay, it's fine. So here's somebody that I could look to fight. Building a spy network, creating a casus belli would be the safest and absolutely the best way to go, or I could just jump straight in and declare a war. A little messy. Not recommended. Now I have the option to raise some levies. We should probably do that. Navy? Sure. Army? Absolutely. 6,700 of them. Here they come. Couple of extra actions I can take while we're raising the army. Of course, I could go back and get some mercenaries. I can also look to reduce war exhaustion so that I can try and have a go at fighting this fight. All right, quick pause. My dudes are here. Here you can see 6,730, as well as a pathetic naval fleet. I guess we'll just send them over that way. And then let's send our main guys into the fight. Here's the enemy. 2 armies. 837 strength. Okay, let's march in. A little bit of a long march, but they will set off. And you know what? I think we'll leave the mercenaries to one side. I've got a good little bit of cash going. I might look to build some extra roads if it weren't for this decision first. Let's learn love with time, like any good love. Alright, off we march. They got a little bit of a head start up here with me. You can see they've taken over this little province, but it's totally fine. For my strength is superior and the numbers are flying. It's a great success. Here, quick pause, we've gained a little bit of war support. You can see casualties massively in my favor, for I am overwhelmingly powerful. Very good indeed. A little bit of extra reinforcement speed there too. So we'll move in to occupy the locations. Obviously city locations, capital locations will be much more valuable than those that just have raw resources, but we want to try and keep everything in account. This war is a relatively small scale, a preview one, if you will. And so as a result, not a lot of territory for me to capture and overwhelming strength. We could maybe look to move back and tidy this up as well, but there's no great need. Let's have a look at the overall panel. As you can see, overall statistics is a fairly straightforward and simple war in this case. No need to pull in big great alliances or anything. This is just a minor power struggle in the provinces after all. Let's wander over and tidy up the trash. Bam. Minus 299, thank you kindly. And we'll continue the march in. Let's stomp our way through every territory we can. Loot some gold along the way, I love it very much. March around, gather all of this up, should be no trouble. One last thing to do to tidy it up. Let me quickly take back this location that they stole off me at the start of the war. Perhaps word to the wise. Try and keep yourself as ready as you can, or at least fight enemies closest to you. Actually, another good tip, generally speaking, because the capital has highest control and you're building roads out from it, if you had a territory right next to it, that'd probably be the one you'd go for first. Alright, one last march. Let's march our way out to the Never Eat Soggy Weet-Bix, out to the east, and capture this last territory. That should put my war support, well over 100%, and I should be able to capitalize on all of the goals under this Sue for Peace panel here. Yes, indeed, that successful occupation I see has now surged me up to 95%, and I should be able to take a whole load of stuff. 3 provinces, they will accept the demand. Let's have peace. Brilliant stuff, Your Majesty. The county of Saluzzo is ours. With that, I can disband the levies, therefore saving us a lot of money, and also bringing the dudes back home, and we can admire our slightly extended borders. Provence has gained a few new provinces. And with that, my friends, out of fear that this video will get like 3 days long, I'm going to leave this early preview look here. Thanks again to Paradox Interactive for providing me with this early access look at Europa Universalis 4. There is just so much inside of this game to unpack. I intend to cover it a little bit more moving forward. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Would you like some basic, and I stress the word basic, tips and tricks videos as we move through the next few weeks post-release? Or another kind of content? Let me know. It's a super fun game. I like grand strategy like Victoria 3, and I certainly feel right at home here with that background experience. Thank you again so much for joining me. I'll see you next time.